I became fluent in Spanish in 8 months from the comfort of my own bedroom. And one of the key reasons why I was able to do so is because I realized there's a few mental tricks that I could use in my favor that would help me to grasp concept Spanish grammar faster and more efficiently. Now, before I realized this, I was actually very, very frustrated because a lot of the times the way that the Spanish grammar worked, it just seemed like it wasn't really working with my mind. Like sometimes I'd ask myself, like, am I okay? Like, am I stupid? Because I've been fighting, just trying to study everything and grasp these concepts, and it wasn't really working. And so what I want to do in this video is break down the tips, the mental tricks that I used. And the reason why this is important is because if you don't understand these tricks and you don't apply them, it will take a lot longer to reach your Spanish learning goals. And also, it'll just be a lot less fun. And you'll find that you're going to be constantly in friction trying to learn things that isn't really necessary. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Jonathan. I started learning Spanish through immersion and comprehensible input in February 2021. And I set myself the goal of becoming fluent by November because that's when my birthday is. And I wanted to do a trip to Spain and just speak to people in Spanish. I ended up accomplishing it. So I went to Madrid. I documented everything on my Instagram as well. So you can have a look if you want. It's still up there. I went to Madrid. I went to Barcelona. And since then, I've done some interviews in Spanish, just explaining the process that I went through. So this is the interview that I did with Mike Ben, and this is the interview that I did with Pablo from Dream in Spanish. Big, big shout out to those guys, by the way. Also, since then, I actually met my partner who is Spanish, and we pretty much always speak in Spanish. And alongside that, I also help people who are learning Spanish achieve their goals faster and more efficiently. Link is in the description. But the first trick that I implemented was something that I learned when I was learning how to drive, right? Seems a bit interesting, but it will make sense. So as I got closer to my driving test, I used to do these like dummy driving tests with my driving instructor. And we started this big Tesco near my house, and then we'd go around for maybe like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, kind of like a real driving test. And he'd kind of pretend that we were in the real exam. And then we finished back at the Tesco, right? So there was this one time we went for a drive. I did all the things, pull up on the left, whatever it is, all of those different maneuvers. Got back to the Tesco and I went really badly. And as I parked, he was just like, that was really poor. And in that moment, I just like genuinely felt like, wow, I don't know what it is. I'm not able to grasp these concepts of driving. I don't know if I'm able to do this. Like genuinely, I was like, raw. This is like, wait, I don't know why. It's just, I can't, like, it's not working for me. I was really down. I was thinking, yeah, this is just way too frustrating. I think it's a bit too hard for me. Maybe I need to just like, I don't know, think about maybe this isn't for me. But then in the moment, I looked around and I realized there were so many people driving. And I realized, hang on a second. It can't be. Like if there's so many people driving, look at all of these people that have been able to grasp this. It is impossible. Like for me, this is what I told myself. It just can't be the case that I'm not able to grasp this as well. And then to add on to that, I had this specific friend who, let's say, wasn't the most, let's say, equipped when it comes to hand-eye coordination. And this person had failed their driving test like 5, 6, 7 times. And what happened was eventually that person passed. And I remember specifically thinking about that person in this moment. And I said, nah, there's no way. Like if that person can pass their test, so can I. Right. And this is very, very, very key because if we look at the facts, let's just look at the facts, right? How many people have learned Spanish as their second language? Well, according to our friend Gemini, 74 million people speak Spanish as a second or a foreign language, right? Now, let's say this is even inflated. Let's say it's actually 70 million and let's even half it. So let's say 35 million. In fact, let's half it again. So let's say it's about 15 million people speak Spanish as their second language and they've been able to grasp the complex grammar structures or concepts that you're struggling to grasp. My argument is that if there are 15 million people that have been able to do that, so can you. Like, I believe that for you. The question is, do you believe that for yourself? And this for me is fundamental. Like, this is where it starts. Because if you can start to give yourself that mental confidence of no, like if there's that many people that have done it, surely I'll be able to do it as well. It's just a matter of time and being able to figure it out, finding a way that makes sense for me to figure it out. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to learning a language, when it comes to learning Spanish, it is just a game of building a personal relationship with Spanish. Okay, that's all it is. Just a game of building a personal relationship with Spanish. The deeper of a relationship you have with Spanish, the more you're going to understand what Spanish sounds like, what Spanish says, what Spanish doesn't say, where Spanish likes to go, where it doesn't like to go. The same as you would have with your friend. And the deeper the relationship is, that's how you can understand natives when they're speaking. And that's how you can speak fluently as well. And that's how you can start to deploy and grasp some of these complex grammar structures. Okay. Because at the end of the day, and bear in mind, I haven't even got into the specifics of grammar. And there's a reason, because that isn't actually as important. Because think about it, if you watch 100 videos or 1,000 videos on how I learned Spanish, everybody has a slightly different way. Somebody will say, oh, do you know what? I did 1 hour of Anki a day. Someone will say, do you know what? I never ever did Anki. I just watched videos. Someone will say, do you know what? I went to Spain and I got a tutor and they used to teach me the grammar. Someone will say, do you know what? I just learned from my bedroom. So you have to realize that that isn't the key. Like, it's not the actual exercises itself. What is the fundamental is you building the relationship with Spanish in a way that makes it so that you can be consistent over time. That's the core. And so if we focus on that, and then we add the idea of the mental confidence of, oh yeah, no, I'm going to be able to do this, that will put you way ahead, like way ahead of most people that are just focusing on, okay, like how do I, the subjunctive, like how do I learn this? Okay, great. So this is you don't need to do that. Sometimes the approach is more important than the technique. The overall mental approach is kind of like if you wanted to, let's say there's two people that wanted to run a marathon, and the first person has primed themselves mentally that, okay, this is going to be a difficult one. I'm going to make sure I need to get enough sleep. It's going to be a long race. But to be fair, I'm pretty sure I can do it as long as I stick to it. I make sure I run hard. I make sure when I get tired, I think about, okay, this is supposed to be hard, but I'm going to be able to do it anyway. That person is way likely or way more likely to complete the marathon than the person that just like, okay, let me focus on how do I run properly. Do you get it? There's more to it. And even if the first person doesn't run properly, that ability to approach the task from the correct mental mind, like the correct mental frame, will make the person, especially if they can enjoy it, will make the person run way further than the person's just like, okay, let me learn how to do this properly. Let me understand. No, like that's not how it works, right? Now, with that being said, there is a point where it's like, okay, how do we practically learn grammar though? Because you're probably thinking, okay, I clicked on this video. I just want to know, like, how do I learn reflexive verbs? How do I learn the subjunctive? How do I learn how to conjugate different tenses and know the difference between the different? Okay, I completely understand, because that's where I was as well. I noticed that in my own journey, there were 3 distinct steps or phases when it comes to grasping complex grammar. And this isn't what necessarily people will teach you, but it's just what I realized in my own personal journey. The first stage is acknowledging that this rule exists and accepting it. And the reason why I say accepting it is because when I was struggling to grasp these concepts, I was really battling with the idea of this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. And I remember when I used to watch videos about, okay, this is why we use the subjunctive here. And I was like, bro, that doesn't make sense. And I was really stuck up in the idea of, wow, this doesn't make sense. Like, this is, why would you even say that? Why would a car be a man and then whatever will be a female? Like, doesn't make any sense. You have to just acknowledge and accept it first. Just be like, oh, okay, interesting. So it looks like there's a situation whereby some describing words are male and female. Okay, fair enough. I accept it. That's the first stage. And I'll be honest, if you can just do that, you're halfway there. Like, just acknowledge it. Don't worry about like understanding everything. Don't worry about being able to identify. I just accept the fact that, you know what, there is something called a subjunctive. It looks like sometimes the verb endings sometimes the conjugations are a little bit weird. I don't know why. I don't know. I think there's something called a subjunctive. And I think sometimes when you're using, okay, I accept it. Fair enough. Or do you know what? Sometimes I feel like people add like se. I don't know. Why do they say se me ha olvidado? Why do they put the se there? I don't really know. But you know what? Fair enough. I acknowledge it. I accept it. Fair enough. That is the first phase. That's the first phase. And if you can do that, you're way better off than the people that try to jump to understanding, right? Because once you acknowledge and accept, with time and with a lot of input, what will happen is you will start to be able to identify Not even necessarily because you understand it, but because you've had enough context. You've exposed yourself to it in its context enough times. You will start to be able to identify where, I think this is one of those situations where I need to use this grammar structure. Or I think this is one of those situations where I need to use that grammar structure. Now, we haven't even got to the point of even understanding yet. Like, we haven't got to that yet. But if you were to just acknowledge, accept, and then be like, okay, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think in this situation, I need to say, para que hables conmigo, en vez de decir, well, instead of saying, para que hablas conmigo. I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure when you say para que, okay, that's when you need to change the ending. I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure that's one of those situations. Okay. So once you've been able to once you start to identify, and this will happen when you do enough input, then the last stage after some time is you might say, oh, okay, so that's why they use that there. Now, this might never come, and if it doesn't really matter. I'll tell you why it doesn't matter, because when I was learning Spanish and I used to do some interchange and meet people that were learning English, I used to ask them, okay, so like, what would you say is the hardest part about learning English? What's the most difficult thing? And a lot of people said to me, oh, the hardest thing is the phrasal verbs. And the funny thing is at the time when I started learning Spanish, I was like 20, 21. In my whole 20, 21 years of life, I'd never ever came across the concept of phrasal verbs. So we have to ask ourselves the question, how is it that me, being a native speaker, is able to speak fluently? And I'm not even talking about understanding a phrasal verb. I hadn't even acknowledged it. I didn't even know that was a thing. And by the way, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like, you know, when you say like, get up, sit down, come here. I think something like that, like those verbs that have those two, come here, get down, go up, whatever it is. And I said, how is that even possible? Then I said, you know what, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the problem. So I then asked, like I did this actual test. I asked people, I asked my brother, I asked some friends, by the way, do you know what a phrasal verb is? And they said, no. Like, what do you mean? Like, do you mean like a phrase in a verb? And I was like, yeah. And that for me confirmed it. You can even try it yourself. If you're an English speaker, ask some of your friends, by the way, do you know what a phrasal verb is? And then look up what a phrasal verb is. And then ask yourself, is it that I understand what a phrasal verb is? Or is it that I can just identify when I need to use that? I'll give you another example. Why is it that we say, if someone asks you, okay, where are you? Let's say you're in a car or wherever it is. And someone asks you, okay, where are you? Well, I'm in the car. Fantastic. But then if you're on the bus, you say, no, I'm not on, you wouldn't say I'm in the bus, you say I'm on the bus or I'm on the train. Why is it that we use in the car situation? Why is it that we use on the train? And why is it that we use on the bus? Now, I couldn't tell you. Like, I couldn't actually explain that to you. I just know that that's how you say it in that situation. And so, like, my point is, you don't necessarily have to understand at the start. Now, there probably is an explanation. Some of the grammar geeks will probably be on this video, be like, yeah, it's because it's the past. Fair enough. Like, you can research it if you want to do that. But the point is, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you want? Do you just want to be able to reach fluency, or is it that you want to actually be I don't know if they call it a linguist or a professor of grammar in Spanish? What do you want? And my point is, I'm not saying you can never learn it. Like, if you want to do it, as I said before, if you want to study it, you can. It's not a problem. But you don't necessarily need to sacrifice what you actually want, which is the ability to grasp these concepts and use them freely, for something that will come naturally with time, if that's what you want. Because after some time, for example, this isn't really grammar, but you know, like how from kids, everybody knows that to say you're welcome in Spanish is como de nada, de nada, de nada. It was after some time that I was like, oh, okay. That kind of means like from nothing. Oh, interesting. That makes sense. Or like, you know how sometimes you can say faltaría más. I remember when I learned that, and that's kind of like a way of saying, oh, like, no worries, you're welcome. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's like a conditional. It would require more. Okay, it kind of makes sense. Okay, fair enough. That didn't come at the start. Like, I already knew how to say that before, but after some time, it started to say, okay, that's actually clicking. Interesting, right? So the way I approach this now, how do we combine all of this together? Great. What we do is, I used to use Spanish dictionary a lot. Okay. I used to use Spanish dictionary a lot. I still actually use it from time to time. This is the website. There's also an app. Let's say you're in a position where you find, let's say you come across somebody using a concept that you don't quite understand yet. Okay. For example, let's say you hear someone say, okay, me gustaría que vinieses aquí. And that vinieses, it's like, wow, why would you even say that? Why would you? I don't get it. So we know that that verb is venir, right? Then we look at the conjugations. Here's what I would do. I would just look to recognize a pattern. And this is the next point. The way all of this works is just pattern recognition over time. And the good news is, if you're listening to this and you can understand me, your ability to recognize patterns is you've already downloaded it. Like God gave that to you at birth because you're already using it. All we need to do now is now deploy it into Spanish. We just need to recognize the patterns. It's not even necessarily about, oh, this is the subjunctive, this is the preterite, past participle, because that stuff I couldn't even tell you in English, but I speak English. Okay, if you want to learn that, you can, but I'm just talking about becoming fluent, right? You don't need to know that. So here's the difference. When I'm now looking up this verb, I might go to the conjugations and I might see, oh, interesting. The subjunctive, vinieses. Oh, okay. So that's like the imperfect subjunctive something. Fair enough. Fair enough. And that's it. That's it. Like I don't need to do much more. I don't write down anything. I mean, if you want to, you could study it in a book, you could do the exercise if that's what you like to do. But personally, I know that that is just one more repetition of pattern recognition. Right? And I know that's 0.1% or more of a intimate relationship with Spanish. Now I'm improving. Okay. Now, if you want to add to it and say, okay, I'm going to write this down and I'm going to do that as long as it doesn't take away from your consistency with spending time with Spanish, because that's the key. So if you want to do that, like do that, but don't feel like you have to. And don't feel like you have to understand, because it's when you mix okay, I need to understand this now. Okay, I need to be able to identify this. Okay, I need to be able to identify why it needs to be used in this context, in this context. When you do all of that from the start, that's when you start to get the feeling of, right, I don't know why I'm struggling to grasp these concepts. I don't know, like, am I silly? Am I the silly one? Am I the dumb one? Am I the stupid one? Is that me? I don't know. Like that's where that comes in. And then you get demotivated. And then because you're even demotivated, now you're not even enjoying spending the time with Spanish. And then what happens is you spend less time, you become more inconsistent, you fall off. And then before you know it, the whole idea of learning Spanish and becoming fluent is a second thought. Okay. So we just want to acknowledge, accept. With time, with the input, we will start to, through pattern recognition, which is a feature, it's an app in your mind. You've already got it downloaded. You use it all the time. You just need to now deploy it. You need to deploy it for the Spanish learning. With time, you'll start to recognize that, okay, oh, if I wanted to say, like, for example, I would like you to come, okay, me gustaría que vinieses. Or for example, if I wanted to say, when you came, I was already here. Bueno, cuando vinieses, yo ya estaba aquí. Now, that same vinieses, for me, it doesn't make sense why I would use that in both cases. As a native English speaker, that doesn't make sense to me. But I know that is what Spanish says. Now, if I really wanted to understand, I could probably go research it, understand, okay, this is the past participle present on the subjunctive of the, fair enough. I personally don't care. That's just a personal thing. With time, I'm sure, like, I'll be like, okay, that does kind of make sense. But for me, I focus on the focus, right? Now, the last thing that you can do is you will find with time, you will start to create mental shortcuts. We've got to understand, like, our brain is lazy. So it wants to create shortcuts all the time. And that's not even a bad thing, because as you start to notice these patterns, your brain will start to group different, like, grammatical concepts in their actual proper context. So different grammatical concepts in the right context, you'll start to group them. And you'll start to notice that, okay, great, this is one of those situations where I need to use this group, right? This is one of those situations where I need to use this group. And it's not even necessarily that you're like, okay, this is a subjunctive, so I need to, it's just, okay, this is one of the situations. So if we go back to the para que or whatever, I just know that, okay, if I want to use para que, like, the ending's going to change somewhere. Like the ending's going to, like, it's going to change somewhere. And what happens is, to start off with, this might be more of a conscious thing So you might have to consciously, and by the way, you will slip, you will make mistakes. Allow yourself to do that. That's not a problem. But let's say like you will have to naturally say, okay, oh, para que vengas. He hecho esto para que vengas. Okay, fair enough. I have to do that a bit. I have to do a bit consciously. But with time, as you repeat that, your brain's going to be lazy. And so with time, it's going to stop consciously wanting to check, is that the right thing? Because it's going to know that, okay, this is one of those situations. So I'm just going to use this type of grammar. Right now, if you're watching this and you're like, wow, this is like way too complex. I don't know if I can do this. Trust me, we were all in your situation at one point. I was in your situation at one point. Like genuinely, I was going watching videos. I think there was one channel called like Butterfly Spanish, and I was watching those videos, and I was like literally taking notes and be like, oh wow, okay, so this is the past one. But what happens is with time, all of that goes out the window. Like when it comes to actually speaking, all of that goes out the window. The same way you would in English. You're not really thinking about, okay, this is the infinitive form. So let me now conjugate the infinitive form into the you form. That would be you are. No one really does that, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying you can't study those videos. If you like grammar videos, in fact, I'd even recommend, like I watched a lot of grammar videos from Español con Juan, and he would explain these concepts in Spanish. And I love those videos. I just watch it. But oh, okay, interesting. This is adding to my pattern recognition. This is adding to my relationship with Spanish overall. And the last thing you can do is if you have a friend that is a native, you can do this way quicker. Right. So a big part of my time that I spent learning Spanish is I invested a lot of time into making friends. And I made a video about that, which you can check out, how to make friends. Now I do have my partner now, which makes it even easier, which I can appreciate. But sometimes, and I know within the whole immersion comprehensible input community, sometimes this isn't really what people recommend, but sometimes I'd literally just stop her. I'd be like, wait, sorry, pause. What did you just say? And it wouldn't be that I didn't understand the content or what she said, the message. I understood the message, but I want to add to my pattern recognition. Say that again. Okay, I said, para que vengas. Oh, interesting. It's just one of those situations. Okay, so this is like one of those para que. Oh, okay, interesting. That's adding to the pattern recognition. And that's it. And I do that over and over again. Now, it does take time. Like you will have to do a lot of input. If you want to supplement that, maybe studying the grammar. I didn't personally do that, like properly sitting down to study it. So I can't tell you to do that because I didn't do it myself. But I know that, okay, if you are doing some of the studying, some of the conscious studying, that can speed up the subconscious acquisition. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. If you want to do that, you can. The main thing is letting the focus be the focus, focusing on the pattern recognition and allowing yourself to understand that I'm going to make mistakes. This is going to take time. But if 74 million people speak Spanish as a second language, there is no way that I'm not at least more mentally capable than at least one of these people. It's just like literally impossible. Like that can't be the case. Right now, by the way, if you are learning Spanish, and you want me to personally help you to implement some of these concepts into your own language learning journey so that you can learn faster, you can learn more efficiently, and you can enjoy the process more overall, there's a link in the description, the first one. Click on that, and I will see you in the next video.